What if I told you that you've never actually controlled anything in your entire life? That this feeling of being in command, this illusion of orchestrating your reality, is nothing more than a story your mind tells itself to maintain the appearance of safety in an inherently uncertain world? You're watching this video because somewhere deep within you, beneath all the planning and strategizing and endless mental rehearsals, there's a recognition of something profoundly unsettling yet liberating. Despite all your careful arrangements, despite every contingency plan you've ever crafted, despite the exhausting theater of maintaining control, life continues to unfold in ways that surprise you completely. There's a silent epidemic sweeping through modern consciousness, and it lives in the space between your thoughts and your breath. It's the anxiety of minds trapped in perpetual planning mode, forever scanning the horizon for threats that may never come, orchestrating futures that will never unfold exactly as imagined. Alan Watts observed this phenomenon decades ago, calling it our fundamental misunderstanding of wu-wei, the art of non-forcing that Western culture seems constitutionally unable to grasp. We've become a civilization of swimmers fighting against the current, convinced that our struggle is what makes us worthy of reaching the shore. But here's what the ancient Taoists understood, what modern neuroscience is now confirming, and what your exhausted nervous system already knows. There's an intelligence operating in your life that's far more sophisticated than your conscious mind's frantic attempts at management. Every breath you take happens without your permission. Every beat of your heart occurs without your supervision. Your cells regenerate, your immune system functions, your dreams weave themselves together in the darkness. All of this magnificent complexity unfolds without a single conscious decision from the character you believe yourself to be. Carl Jung discovered something remarkable about the human psyche that directly challenges everything you've been taught about achievement and success. He called it the transcendent function, and it revealed that genuine integration of the personality only occurs when conscious control surrenders to a deeper intelligence. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of recognition. The moment when you finally stop trying to micromanage the universe and allow yourself to be danced by the dance that's already dancing. This creates an immediate paradox that will either liberate you or terrify you, depending on how tightly you're gripping the steering wheel of your imagined authority. If you're not controlling your life, then who is? If you're not the director of this elaborate production, then what exactly are you? And if the character you've spent decades constructing isn't actually running the show, then what happens to your entire sense of identity? The answer requires you to let go of everything you think you know about being human. Everything. Perhaps you've noticed that the harder you try to control something, the more chaotic it becomes. The more desperately you grasp for certainty, the more uncertain everything feels. The more energy you pour into orchestrating outcomes, the further those outcomes seem to drift from your intentions. This isn't personal failure or lack of willpower. This is the universe trying to teach you something about the nature of flow and resistance, about the difference between swimming with the current and exhausting yourself fighting against it. Your brain is running a sophisticated control addiction program that's been decades in the making. Deep within your neural architecture, there's a chemical feedback loop that's keeping you imprisoned in future-focused living. Every time you plan something, every time you run through a mental scenario, every time you try to anticipate and prepare for what's coming next, your dopamine system gives you a small hit of satisfaction. You become addicted to the feeling of having a plan, even when the plan never unfolds as imagined. But here's what's really happening beneath the surface of your awareness. Your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain responsible for executive function and future planning, has become a tyrant. It was designed by evolution to help our ancestors survive in genuinely dangerous environments. But it's now trapped in a modern world where most of our threats are imaginary. So it creates threats to justify its existence, scanning constantly for problems to solve, futures to control, chaos to prevent. The result is a cortisol control feedback loop that's literally rewiring your nervous system for chronic dissatisfaction. The more you try to control your life to reduce stress, the more stressed your system becomes. It's like trying to calm a storm by shouting at it, trying to create peace through warfare, trying to find stillness by running faster. Your attempts to create order are generating the very chaos you're trying to prevent. And because we're social creatures with mirror neurons, this frantic energy spreads. Everyone around you seems to be desperately trying to control their lives because well, they are. We're living through an invisible pandemic of minds that have forgotten how to trust the intelligence that's already operating beneath the surface of our awareness. We've become a species of control addicts, and our drug of choice is the illusion that we can orchestrate reality through willpower alone. But there are moments, brief, precious moments when the default mode network of your brain, that internal narrator that never stops commenting on your experience, finally falls silent. These moments usually arrive uninvited, often when you're completely absorbed in something beautiful or challenging or present. In these gaps between thoughts, in these spaces between the mental commentary, something extraordinary reveals itself. You discover who you actually are when you stop trying to be someone. Now I want you to imagine something with me. Picture a single drop of rain forming in a cloud, beginning its journey toward the earth below. This drop has no anxiety about its destination. It doesn't carry a 5-year plan or a vision board. It has no backup strategies, no contingency plans, no insurance policies against the possibility of landing somewhere unexpected. It simply falls, and in that falling, it becomes part of something infinitely larger than itself. Alan Watts spent much of his life studying this quality of effortless action, watching how water moves through the world without resistance yet somehow always finds its way to where it needs to be. Water doesn't have muscles, doesn't have willpower, doesn't have determination in any sense we would recognize. Yet it's the most powerful force on the planet. It carves through mountains, shapes coastlines, creates the very conditions that make life possible, all through the simple act of following its nature without fighting against it. Your life, as you're currently living it, is like swimming upstream against a river that already knows where it's going. You've been conditioned to believe that this struggle, this constant resistance, this heroic effort against the natural flow of things, is what makes you worthy of existence. But what if the river already knows the way to the ocean? What if your exhausting upstream battle is actually taking you further from your destination, not closer to it? This is what Watts called the backwards law, and it reveals something counterintuitive about the nature of fulfillment and happiness. The more directly you pursue happiness, the more it eludes you. The harder you chase peace of mind, the more agitated your mind becomes. The more desperately you grasp for love, the more it slips through your fingers. It's like trying to hold water in your closed fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more it escapes. But watch what happens when you cup your hands gently, when you create a space for water to rest rather than trying to capture it. Suddenly you can hold more water than you ever could through force. This is the difference between muscular living and gravitational living, between forcing your way through life and allowing life to move through you. The intelligence of water teaches us something profound about decision-making and life direction. Water always finds the path of least resistance, but this doesn't mean it's lazy or passive. When water encounters an obstacle, it doesn't fight against it. It finds a way around, under, or through. It adapts its form to fit whatever container it finds itself in, yet it never loses its essential nature. It can be gentle enough to nourish a seedling or powerful enough to carve the Grand Canyon. This is what genuine spontaneity looks like. Not chaos or randomness, but intelligent responsiveness to the conditions of each moment. It's the difference between being reactive and being receptive, between being pushed around by circumstances and dancing with them. There's a character living inside your head that believes it's running your life. This character has a name, a history, a collection of preferences and aversions, a whole elaborate story about who it is and what it needs to be happy. This character is convinced that it makes decisions, chooses directions, controls outcomes. But here's what decades of consciousness research have revealed. This character is more like a narrator than a director, more like a commentator than a participant. The voice in your head that you take to be yourself is actually arriving after the fact, creating stories about actions that have already been initiated by deeper, non-conscious processes. Experiments in neuroscience have shown that brain activity indicating a decision occurs several hundred milliseconds before conscious awareness of making that decision. Your sense of being in control is actually a post hoc narrative construction, a story your mind tells to maintain the illusion of being a separate self navigating an external world. Alan Watts called this the skin-encapsulated ego, the illusion that you're a separate being trapped inside a body that must struggle against a hostile universe to survive and thrive. But these boundaries you feel so certain about, where does your body end and the air around it begin? Where does your mind end and the information it's processing begin? Where does your individual will end and the vast web of conditions that shaped your preferences begin? Every breath you take was once part of a tree. Every thought you think has been influenced by countless other minds. Every decision you make emerges from a complex interaction of genetic predispositions, cultural conditioning, environmental factors, and mysterious quantum processes that science is only beginning to understand. Your sense of being an isolated decision maker is as artificial as the sense of being separate from the air you breathe. What you call your life is actually billions of interconnected processes happening simultaneously. Your heart beats approximately 100,000 times each day without asking for your input. Your immune system wages complex battles against invaders you're completely unaware of. Your digestive system transforms food into energy through chemical processes, more sophisticated than any technology humans have ever created. Meanwhile, the Earth rotates at over 1,600 kilometers per hour, orbiting a star that's burning at 15 million degrees Celsius, in a galaxy containing over 100 billion other stars, in a universe containing over 100 billion galaxies. None of this requires your permission. None of this needs your management. None of this depends on your control. So who exactly do you think you are in this vast choreography of existence? What exactly are you controlling? When all the layers of imagined authority are stripped away, when the puppet finally realizes there's no puppeteer, when the character in the story recognizes itself as both author and reader, what remains is something far more mysterious and beautiful than anything your controlling mind could have orchestrated. Watch a jazz musician deep in improvisation, and you'll witness something that transcends ordinary thinking. They're not planning the next notes, not strategizing the melody, not consulting an internal rulebook about what should come next. They're in a state of spontaneous intelligence that bypasses conscious deliberation entirely. Yet their playing isn't random or chaotic. It's often more beautiful, more surprising, more perfect than anything they could have composed through careful planning. This is what genuine spontaneity looks like when it emerges from deep preparation and trust. The musician has spent thousands of hours learning scales, studying harmony, developing technical skill. But in the moment of improvisation, all that knowledge moves into the background, creating space for something new to emerge. The preparation doesn't disappear. It becomes invisible, integrated so completely that it no longer requires conscious access. Your unconscious mind processes approximately 11 million bits of information per second. Your conscious mind processes about 40. You've been trying to navigate life with a calculator. When you have access to a supercomputer, you've been attempting to micromanage existence with the tiny fraction of intelligence available to conscious awareness while ignoring the vast intelligence that's operating beneath the surface of your attention. This deeper intelligence doesn't think in words or images. It doesn't create pros and cons lists or strategic plans. It operates more like the intelligence of a tree that knows exactly when to bloom without ever having studied botany. Like a bird that can navigate thousands of kilometers during migration without GPS technology. Like your own immune system that can identify and neutralize threats without conscious input from your decision-making mind. The spontaneity we're exploring isn't impulsiveness or reactive behavior. It's not the spontaneity of a child having a tantrum or an adult making decisions based on momentary emotions. It's the spontaneity of water finding its way around obstacles, of a plant growing toward sunlight, of your body knowing how to heal a wound without conscious instruction. It's intelligence in action without the interference of anxious self-consciousness. But to access this intelligence, you need to cultivate what the Taoists called Wu Wei, non-forcing action, effortless effort, the art of getting out of your own way. This requires a fundamental shift in your relationship with uncertainty. Instead of treating the unknown as a problem to be solved, you begin to recognize it as the space where all possibilities exist. Most of your control patterns are actually attempts to avoid feeling uncertain, to avoid the discomfort of not knowing what comes next. But uncertainty isn't the opposite of security. Uncertainty is the womb where all new life is born. Without uncertainty, there can be no growth, no creativity, no genuine surprise, no authentic intimacy. Certainty is the enemy of aliveness. There's a sacred timing operating in your life that you cannot hurry and cannot delay. It's like the timing that governs when a flower blooms. Try to force it and you'll destroy exactly what you're trying to create. Try to prevent it and you'll only exhaust yourself fighting against an intelligence far more vast and patient than your anxious mind can comprehend. This timing isn't something you can learn to manipulate or manage. It's something you can only learn to recognize and align with. It's the rhythm that governs when you meet the right person. When the perfect opportunity appears, when the solution to a problem suddenly becomes obvious, when you're ready to let go of something you've been clinging to for years. Carl Jung called this synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence that seems to suggest the universe is conspiring in your favor. But it's not conspiracy. It's recognition. It's what happens when you finally stop swimming against the current and begin to move in harmony with the deeper patterns that were always operating in your life. Watch how a river moves through a landscape, and you'll see something remarkable about the relationship between persistence and patience. The river doesn't fight against the mountain. It finds a way around or through, following the path of least resistance while never abandoning its essential direction. Over time, the gentle persistence of water can carve canyons through solid rock. But this happens through yielding rather than forcing, through consistent flow rather than violent impact. The spaces between your actions often contain more power than the actions themselves. Like the pause between lightning and thunder, the silence between musical notes that makes the music possible, the emptiness between thoughts where awareness reveals itself, these pregnant pauses are where transformation actually occurs. You've been living out of sync with the natural rhythms of your own existence, forcing growth when it's time for rest, pushing for action when it's time for contemplation, demanding results when it's time for patience. You've forgotten that there are seasons in consciousness just as there are seasons in nature. Times for planting, times for tending, times for harvesting, times for letting the field lie fallow. Receptivity isn't passivity. It's the sophisticated ability to sense when action is needed and when non-action is more powerful. It's like a master gardener who knows when to water and when to wait, when to prune and when to let grow, when to plant and when to simply observe. This kind of receptivity requires tremendous sensitivity and trust. Trust that the intelligence governing your life is at least as wise as the intelligence governing the garden. Most of your suffering comes from being in the wrong timing, trying to make things happen before they're ready to happen, or clinging to things long after they're ready to transform into something new. Learning to sense the sacred timing of your life is like learning to dance. At first, you're concentrating on the steps, but eventually you stop thinking about technique and simply move with the music. The divine choreography is always unfolding, whether you recognize it or not. The question isn't whether you're part of this dance. The question is whether you're fighting against the rhythm or allowing yourself to be moved by it. Here's what no one tells you about the transition from control to flow. It's not a technique you can master or a practice you can perfect. It's more like learning to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more awake you become. The more effort you apply, the further you drift from the very thing you're seeking. The pathless path begins with the recognition that you've been asking the wrong question. Instead of, how can I control this? Or what should I do next? The question becomes, what's already wanting to happen here? Instead of forcing your agenda onto reality, you begin to sense what reality is already unfolding and find your place within that larger movement. This doesn't mean becoming passive or abandoning all planning. It means learning to distinguish between conscious preparation and anxious control, between responsive action and reactive forcing. It means developing the sensitivity to know when to engage and when to wait, when to speak and when to listen, when to act and when to simply be present with what's emerging. Start with small experiments in trust. Take a different route home without any particular reason. Allow a conversation to unfold without an agenda. Respond to a question without rehearsing your answer first. Notice how your mind reacts to these tiny departures from control. Observe the anxiety that arises when you don't know what comes next, but don't try to fix or change it. Just notice. Most of your control patterns operate below the threshold of conscious awareness. They're like background programs running on your computer, consuming resources even when you're not actively using them. The practice of letting go begins with simply becoming aware of these patterns without immediately trying to change them. Watch how your mind creates elaborate future scenarios, how it rehearses conversations that haven't happened yet, how it tries to anticipate and prepare for problems that may never arise. Notice how exhausting this constant mental rehearsal becomes, how it pulls you away from the actual experience of being alive in this moment. The witness position is crucial here, the part of you that can observe your thoughts and patterns without getting caught up in them. This witnessing awareness is what allows you to gradually release the grip of compulsive control without falling into chaos or irresponsibility. As you begin to relax your death grip on orchestrating every detail of your existence, something remarkable happens. You discover that life has an intelligence of its own, that there's a deeper order operating beneath the surface chaos, that the universe has been taking care of itself quite well without your micromanagement. This isn't wishful thinking or spiritual bypassing. It's a practical recognition based on direct experience. The same intelligence that coordinates the migration of birds, the changing of seasons, the healing of wounds, the beating of your heart. This intelligence is also available to guide the movements of your life when you stop drowning it out with anxious mental noise. Alan Watts left us with an invitation that cuts through all spiritual complexity and philosophical abstraction. You are not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. Let that sink in for a moment. You are not a project that needs improvement, not a machine that needs better management, not a chaos that needs control. You are a mystery, something beautiful and complex and alive that can only be experienced, not figured out. Your entire life you've been operating under the assumption that you need to become someone else, achieve something more, control something better. You've been treating yourself like a problem that needs solving, a deficit that needs filling, a chaos that needs organizing. But what if the fundamental premise is wrong? What if you're already complete, already whole, already exactly what you need to be? This doesn't mean you stop growing or learning or evolving. It means you stop trying to fix yourself and start living yourself. It means you stop treating your existence like a business project and start experiencing it like a work of art. It means you stop being your own. harsh manager and start being your own curious friend. Neville Goddard discovered something profound about the relationship between imagination and reality that most people completely misunderstand. He said that imagining creates reality, but not in the way most people think. It's not about forcing visualizations or manipulating outcomes through mental effort. It's about the effortless recognition that you already are what you seek to become, that the imaginal act is simply alignment with what already exists in potential. The practical freedom of spontaneous living doesn't mean abandoning all structure or responsibility. It means discovering the difference between structure that serves life and structure that constrains it, between responsibility that flows from love and responsibility that stems from anxiety. It means learning to plan from presence rather than from fear, to organize from wisdom rather than from control. When you stop exhausting yourself trying to orchestrate every detail of your existence, tremendous energy becomes available for actually living. When you stop fighting against the current of your own life, you discover how much power was being wasted in resistance. When you stop trying to be someone else, you finally have space to discover who you actually are. Simple daily practices can help maintain this orientation. Breathe without controlling your breath, noticing how your body already knows its perfect rhythm. Walk without a specific destination occasionally, trusting that your feet will take you where you need to go. Have conversations without agendas, allowing authentic communication to emerge naturally. Allow yourself to not know, to be uncertain, to be surprised by your own responses. The ultimate paradox is that mastering the art of letting go requires no mastery at all. It's like learning to fall. The more you try to control the fall, the more likely you are to get hurt. The more you relax into gravity, the more gracefully you land. Letting go is not a technique to be perfected, but a recognition to be lived. You cannot force yourself to trust life any more than you can force yourself to fall asleep. Trust emerges naturally when you stop feeding the thoughts and beliefs that create distrust. Peace arises spontaneously when you stop energizing the mental patterns that create agitation. Love flows freely when you stop blocking it with the need to control how it's expressed or received. The dance has always been dancing you. Every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of awareness has been part of a vast choreography that was never under your control. You've simply been so focused on trying to direct the dance that you forgot how to let yourself be moved by it. Perhaps ... Just perhaps, you can stop trying to be the choreographer and simply ... dance. You can stop trying to conduct the orchestra and simply ... listen to the music. You can stop trying to direct the river and simply let yourself be carried to wherever rivers go when they stop fighting against their own nature. The life you've been trying so hard to control has been trying to live itself through you all along. The intelligence you've been trying to override with your conscious planning has been patiently waiting for you to remember that it knows the way. The spontaneity you've been afraid to trust has been the source of every genuine moment of beauty and creativity you've ever experienced. What would happen if you trusted that? What would happen if you relaxed into the recognition that the same force that grows flowers and moves planets and heals wounds is also available to guide your life? What would happen if you stopped swimming against the current and allowed yourself to be carried by the river that already knows the way to the ocean? The answer isn't something you can think your way to. It's something you can only discover by letting go, by relaxing the grip of control, by allowing life to live itself through you rather than trying to live it at it. Right now, in this moment, the dance is already dancing. The river is already flowing. The mystery is already unfolding, and you are already exactly where you need to be, exactly who you need to be, exactly what this moment requires. Perhaps it's time to stop trying to be anything else and simply ... be. The invitation is always present. The door is always open. The dance is always ready to dance you. All that's required is the willingness to let go of the illusion that you were ever in control of anything other than this single, precious, unrepeatable moment of awareness ... which is the only place where life has ever actually been happening anyway. Just happening, through you, as you, in spite of you, because of you, simply perfectly completely happening.